welcome back to my channel. Alright, so last month I decided to bring back my body mod Q&A videos, and it's already that time again for another one. If you're new here and don't know what my body mod Q&As are, basically once a month I just ask if y'all have any body mod related questions for me. They can be specifically in regards to me, or they can be like general body mod questions that you're curious about. So if you would like to submit a question for the next video, you can either drop them in the comments below, or you can go ahead and follow me on my Instagram and wait for me to pop up the question box a few days before I decide to film and ask over there. Now, these didn't used to be anonymous unless someone specifically said they wanted to be anonymous, but I have decided to go ahead and just make these anonymous so that maybe people will feel a little bit more comfortable asking questions. So let's get started. Is there a recommendation of time frame between an initial tattoo and then wanting to cover said initial tattoo? Basically, the time frame is to make sure that it's healed, because that is going to technically be scar tissue. So you want the tattoo to be completely healed. You mentioned in your comment that it's a year old and you're already wanting to cover it up. That should be plenty of time. It has gone through the healing process. It probably looks just pretty flush with your skin now, no issues. You're pretty safe at this point to go ahead and get it covered up. It's just finding an artist that is willing to do the cover up, because not all of them are. At a year out, you should be good. How do I deal with a rip stretching up? I didn't see blood during the stretch, but it hurt a ton. Then days later, it bled and kept making clear liquid. What should I do? So if you did experience a tear, a rip, or something while you were stretching up, the best thing you can do is to leave it alone while it heals. When that happens, usually it means you went too fast or too soon from your previous stretch, and it's your body's way of saying like, yo, let's not do that again. Right now, the best thing to do is to just let it heal up. Try again once it's not producing any kind of fluid, once it no longer hurts. Definitely do a good inspection of it. I know it's kind of difficult to look around your lobe because you're like in the mirror going like, I can't tell. Once it feels better, once it's not producing fluids or anything like that, try and see if you notice any little tears, and at that point you should be able to go up again. But again, take it nice and slow, and if you're noticing any kind of resistance or pain in the process, stop. Love your Medusa, and I'd like to get one, pushing on 48 by the way, but I have a nice gap between my teeth, so I'm scared to rip it out. Any thoughts? So I'll be honest, the first few weeks are pretty rough when it comes to having this because your bar is so long to account for swelling. My jewelry got caught on my teeth so much during those first few weeks of having that really long bar. However, once you've gotten to the point where the swelling has gone down and you can downsize, it's really not that bad. My jewelry right now never come close to touching my teeth or my gums, so I don't ever worry about that. However, those first few weeks are pretty rough. You will find it getting caught on your teeth or in between your teeth. As you mentioned, you have a gap, but I wouldn't let it keep you from getting it. I would just be very mindful of that fact. What is about the average size for a tragus piercing jewelry? So I have an entire video about tragus piercings. It's part of my comprehensive guide series, so if you want to go learn more about the tragus piercing, definitely go check that out. But the average, once things have, like, it's healed, the swelling has gone down, everything like that, the average is 16 gauge, is in the thickness of it, and the length kind of depends on the thickness of your tragus. Usually they are 1/4 of an inch in length. However, I've known plenty of people that have 5/16 of an inch in length because their tragus is very prominent, but typically you'll find 16 gauge, 1/4 of an inch in length. Less of a question, more of an observation. How come I've never seen anyone put a hoop ring in their top lip? Like Medusa piercings, everyone pretty much just wears studs, but no one wears rings there. I don't think it's because it would be uncomfortable or damage to the teeth and gums. So I did cut this one off because this was a little bit longer of a question. Just as future reference, if you're asking a question, keep it concise, because otherwise I'm gonna cut it off. But that actually is the reason why a lot of people don't wear a hoop. I actually, when I first got my Medusa done, no one knows that I did this, but I tried a hoop in it just to see what it was like, and it's very uncomfortable because you mentioned in this comment that people wear hoops in their smileys. So why don't they wear it in the Medusa? Because you can't think that that would be the reason why people wouldn't do it, is because it's uncomfortable. But the hoops are opposite directions, whereas a hoop in your smiley is flush against like your teeth and your gums. A hoop in your Medusa, the curve is going into your teeth and into your gums. So whereas before it's right up against it and flat, this way it's curved out, and so the curve is resting on your teeth and on your gums. So honestly, that is why people don't do it often. I've actually seen one person IRL who wears a hoop in that piercing. I think maybe it kind of depends on the jewelry size and like the diameter and stuff like that. However, the majority of people just wear a stud there because the hoop is touching the teeth and the gums pretty easily this way. And it's also really uncomfortable. Question: when I was much younger, I begged my mom to get earrings. She gave in when I was probably in the 3rd grade. We ended up taking them out and letting them heal because they didn't seem to heal and it worried her. We did clean it like we were told to, but my mother thought it'd be better to take them out. It's probably worth mentioning that she said the area around the piercing somehow seemed hard. Never figured out what it was that went wrong. Maybe I was just too young to care for the lobe piercings properly. Do you think now that I'm much older it would be smart to try again? I've never given up on my dream of having earrings. So this is one of those cases where it's like, how was the piercing done? Was it done with a piercing gun or was it done with a needle like it's supposed to be done? If it's done with a gun, there's your answer right there. Don't ever get piercings done with guns. Coming from experience, as all 3 of my lobes were done with a piercing gun, it doesn't usually end well. These took years to heal up. I had one that took probably a decade before it finally decided, I'm done fighting with you. I'll just go ahead and heal up. If it was done with a piercing gun, there's your answer right there as to why it never healed. Also, 3rd grade, yes, is pretty young, but you're also at that age where you're at least saying, hey, I want to get it done. So it could be improper aftercare because it's also pretty young, and at that age, you don't really want to care for anything like that. But I would say at this point, definitely go ahead and try again. The reason why it was hard is because of scar tissue. If you were feeling any kind of hardness where that piercing was, it's definitely scar tissue. Piercers can pierce through scar tissue. It may be a little bit more painful. It may be a little bit more difficult. However, they also may suggest a different spot. Like maybe if it was off-centered at all, maybe they'll be like, oh, we can move it over a little bit more and then we don't have to worry about it. There's a lot of variables here as to why it may not have healed, it feels hard, anything like that, but you definitely should give it a chance, but go see a professional piercer. Because again, I don't have the context here as to whether or not you had it done with a gun or if you actually went to a professional. Above all else, go see a professional, let them look at it and tell you if they think it's possible or not. I've had my septum pierced for 9 weeks. It's healed well. Can I swap the retainer for a ring now? So your septum, you want to swap the retainer for a ring. Did you start off with a retainer? Because a retainer is a clear, usually plastic or glass piece of jewelry that's usually not an initial jewelry, so I'm a little confused on what you actually have in your septum right now. Usually you start with like what I've got in, which is a horseshoe or curved barbell. After 9 weeks, septums do heal pretty fast. As long as it's not hurting or anything like that, you should be able to swap it out. But I think I'm just confused as to what jewelry you currently have in. But you should be fine as long as it's not hurting or anything like that. Kind of not body mod, but what kind of jewelry theme are you doing for your wedding? I mean, it's kind of body mod related because you got to think about all the different piercings that I have to take into account. So theme wise, it's just going to be like clear crystals. I haven't really done too much thought into what I want to do. I have some things saved on like Etsy or like any of the jewelry places that I usually buy from, but for the most part, it's all going to be clear, like diamond look. I plan to do a video though where I like try on my wedding jewelry. There are a few places on Etsy that I want to purchase from, and then a few other shops that I want to try. Be on the lookout for a video coming probably in August or September regarding just trying on my wedding jewelry. Do Filtrum piercings cause damage to teeth and gums? They definitely can. Any lip piercing can cause damage to your teeth and gums. That's why I took my labret piercing out down here, because it was definitely causing damage to both. It kind of depends on how the piercing is done. So when my piercer did my Filtrum or Medusa, as most people know it, they specifically positioned it so that once the jewelry was sized down, I wouldn't have to worry about it hitting my teeth or my gums. So my Filtrum piercing, jewelry in there right now, does not come anywhere close to touching my teeth or gums. So it kind of depends on the positioning of it as well as the jewelry that you have in there. What age do you think is appropriate for piercings other than lobes? For example, helix. This is just personal preference for me because I know a lot of people will come in and be like, oh, I took my child to get their helix done when they were 12, or I went and took my child to get their navel done when they were 14 or something like that. This is just personal preference. I think piercings, once a person is able to consent to it, don't even get me started on piercings and babies. But I feel like helixes, like my first helix was done when I was 15 years old. It was done at Claire's. We're not going to talk about it. It was bad. But I think as long as the person wanting it is old enough to understand the need to care for it, and as long as there is permission for it, and as long as a shop is okay with doing it. Now, there are going to be shops that have like age restrictions on certain things, like they'll do lobes for younger children, they'll maybe even do helixes for like preteens or teens or stuff like that, but there is definitely an age restriction at most shops for doing anything else. And then once you turn 18 years old and you're, you know, technically an adult and do whatever you want. Before that point, I definitely think anything before 18, like maybe navel, helix, lobes, but I don't know, this one's very rambly for me because I have strong feelings, but also not strong feelings about it. Really only strong feeling I have is to not get babies pierced. They can't consent to it, and it just feels wrong. What is your opinion on emu oil for healing new piercings? So I haven't done too much research on emu oil because once I started doing research on it, I realized that an emu has to die in order for you to use emu oil. I personally would not use it because of that reasoning, but I know a lot of people do swear by it. What is it like when you have way more body mods than your partner? Well, considering my fiance has 0 body mods, like no tattoos, no piercings, no colored hair or anything like that, I've never thought anything of it. I don't really know how to answer that. Like, I've never really thought about the dynamic between me having all of these like body modifications and my fiance having 0. I like them. He's got nothing against them. He just doesn't want them on himself, which is perfectly fine. I don't think I've really considered that question before, so I'm not entirely sure how to give you a proper response. I personally don't think anything of it. I'm pretty sure my fiance doesn't think anything of it, so some people may be a little bit more like, oh, I feel weird because like my partner doesn't have any, or I feel weird because my partner has all of these. But like personally, it's really never been something that's crossed my mind in a way where it's just like, I've got all of these and you've got nothing kind of thing. Can I get nose piercings if I have bad allergies for half of the year and I very aggressively rub my nose? If you have allergies for like less than half the year, the best suggestion at that point is to make sure you don't get pierced during that time. Say you have allergies during like spring and summer, but they clear up in the fall and the winter. I would definitely recommend getting it done in the fall, and then that way it's got months to be able to heal by the time spring and summer come back around. It's also one of those things where you just have to be very cognizant of rubbing your nose, because I too suffer from allergies. Not year round, like winter I'm pretty good, but I will definitely feel them spring and fall. I'm somewhat feeling them right now, like my nose is a little itchy right now. I also take over-the-counter allergy medication. That helps things, but when I have my nose piercings and I feel any kind of itch, I used to be the kind of person that would rub their nose all over the place. Now it's just one of those things where it's like, it definitely looks like I'm picking my nose, but if I feel an itch, I just take, not me catching my nail on my septum, I'll just take my nail and do a little itch like that, or I'll do something like that. So if I notice an itch is coming, I have to stop myself because I definitely used to be the person that would rub their nose all over the place. It's just something you have to be mindful of. But I totally think that you can get it done. Just pick the best time of year for you to get it done, so then that way it can heal well enough before the allergies hit. What's your favorite piercing body mod and why? So my favorite piercing is definitely my septum. I love my septum so much. It's so versatile. You can put so many cool things in it. It also is really cool because depending on the jewelry, you can hide it pretty easily. So for me, I definitely think my septum piercing is my favorite piercing. I also really like my conch, but also my conch was a dream to heal. I know a lot of people do not experience that, but like ear piercing wise, my conch is just my baby. But I definitely think if we're talking piercings, those are my favorites. And last question is, what is the one body mod you would never get? Never get? There's honestly a lot of body mods that I would never get. They're the like extreme ones, so like getting the implants in your skin, the tongue splitting, the elf ears, anything like that. Nothing against them. I love how they look. I just personally don't see them for me. But that is it for this month's Body Mod Q&A. Thank you all so much for those that submitted a question. Again, if you would like to submit one for the next Body Mod Q&A, you can drop them in the comments below or follow me on my Instagram and wait for me to pop up the question box. Special thank you to my patrons. You can help support the channel on Patreon while having access to videos early, viewing patron-only content, and more. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to go down there and hit that subscribe button, as well as that notification bell, so YouTube will let you know when I upload next. But until next time, bye y'all!